All right, guys. So we are going to call this realtor now. We're going to call him on time. He was a little pissed off before, as you heard. We're going to call him now. His name is Ernesto. Let me pull up his listing. Hey, Ernesto, how are you? It's Carlos. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, Ernesto.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm calling about 9. I believe you spoke to Rachel earlier. Sorry about before, I got caught up in another call. That's why I called you a little late. But we are interested in this one. We actually have an end buyer that's interested in this one. So he actually sent this to us and asked if we could get in contact with the realtor and see if your seller would be open to taking or at least considering a creative offer. So Rachel said you were, so that's the reason why she booked a call for me to actually give you a call. Is that right?
Well, I told her, I don't know exactly what you guys plan to do, but I told her if you guys send me an offer, I can present it to the sellers and see what they say. I don't know
Yeah,
exactly what, yeah.
yeah, totally. The reason why I call first is because this is it's an unconventional offer. It's creative finance. If I send it without an explanation, it may not make sense. Are you familiar with creative finance?
No,
No? Okay. So the way this one would work, and this is just like, because I don't know any information about this property at all, so I'll give you a very high level rundown, just so you have an idea on the overview, and then we can go into specifics. So, is there an underlying mortgage on this property? Like the seller, do they still have a mortgage on it?
yes, they do have one.
They do? Okay. And do they have much equity, or is it very little?
Yeah, no, they have equity.
Perfect. So the way this would work, if as long as it makes sense for everyone, for yourself, for the seller, and also for the buyer, is the buyer would actually come in at the full asking price, the 749. They would cover your commission. They would also cover the closing costs as well. So it's not going to come out of the gross amount that the seller receives. And then in return for that, we would just ask the seller to hold the finance under their name for a certain period of time. And then the remaining amount, which is the equity, we would just figure out like a payment plan to get them paid back in full, minus the down payment that the buyer would make on closing date to the seller. Does that kind of make sense?
So basically what you're saying is that the buyer will repay the equity that the seller has in like deferred payments or something like that.
In payments, yeah. So now, because I don't know the situation and because I don't know what's important for the seller, I don't want to say, hey, we're going to pay it back in this amount of time, because I want to understand a little bit more what's important for the seller, so we can prepare an offer that's going to make sense for everyone, as opposed to offending the seller. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to work with you, just workshop this to begin with, and put something together that you feel comfortable in actually presenting to the seller, where it meets their best interest, and they can actually consider. So then we can go back and forth and figure out something that works for everyone. So I see this one's been listed for 35 days, so it's not too long. You've had about 560 views on Zillow, 24 saves. Have you had any walkthroughs, any showings listed booked for the property? Like how is the listing going so far?
Well, because you know the Christmas season and all that, it's been only probably, to be honest with you, like 5 people have seen the property.
Okay, 5 people. And what's been their feedback so far?
Well, most of the people, they're kind of waiting until new president takes over to see what they gonna be on the interest rate and that stuff. So we actually haven't promote the property because of the season, but we starting actually uh, social media campaign like this week to see what's gonna happen with the property. And I know the sellers they wanna cash out, so
Okay, they want to cash out. Why are they selling the property, by the way? Because it is a great property.
it is a great property, but they own another property and they wanna move back to the other one and use because they use actually one of them just retired from work, so they wanna eliminate this mortgage and just stay with the other one that they got.
Ah, okay. And the other property that they own, is it in Riverside as well, or is it somewhere else?
Yeah, it's in Riverside also.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, because I'm closing on another property for another client on Tuco Lane in Riverside, but it's a little more towards the north. We did something very, very similar. So the owner of the property is actually an attorney. He has another property in LA where he travels back and forth because his office is in LA. And he was trying to sell his property in Riverside for, I think, maybe like 45 or 50 days. I contacted him, and I explained exactly what I'm explaining to you, and how our buyer is interested in buying creatively, and we ended up coming up with something that worked for everyone. So do you know roughly how much the underlying mortgage that the seller has right now?
I think they owe like 450,000, something like that.
450. Okay, I'm just gonna write this down because this is gonna help me prepare the offer. Okay, 977. Is the other property nicer? Like they got a pool or something? That's why they want to move to the other one, or?
No, it's almost paid off the other property.
Oh, okay. Okay, so roughly you said 450 underlying mortgage, and do you know like roughly what the interest rate they have on that mortgage?
I'm not sure. I think it's 4.5.
4.5. Okay. So the other thing that is really attractive for our buyers, and the reason they contact us to see if we can help in finding them a property creatively, is because we're leaving the existing mortgage under the seller's name. The interest rate doesn't change. So what we're really buying is the interest rate at 4.5%. Now, you mentioned before that most of the buyers are waiting until Trump takes office, right? That's happening on about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess one of two things are going to happen. Either the interest rates are going to stay the same and go up, and nothing will change with the market, or the interest rates will come down, but then there's going to be more demand for properties. So possibly the price of properties may actually go up because there's more demand of properties. You know what I mean? And right now, because I've been working in California for a while, even though the interest rates are high, the properties are still selling. I'm guessing you're still having a good time selling property right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, especially California. It's an incredible market. You guys are doing well over there. So what would be attractive for our buyer would be to take over the existing mortgage payments at 4.5%. Now the remaining balance, which is, so what's it listed for? 7. Where is it?
49, 750, something like that.
Okay, so 749, So let's say 749 less 450. These are rough numbers, by the way. Like I do need a mortgage balance just to check. But okay, so the remaining balance is 299, roughly 300,000. I need to double check exactly how much is the maximum amount that our buyer is able to put down at close. But let's just say it's 10%. Okay, let's say it's 75,000 plus closing. Okay, and yeah, 75,000 plus closing. Your commission would be included inside the 75,000, so the net would go to the seller, and then the remaining balance after the 75 is paid, whatever's remaining out of the 299, we would just need to figure out how much the seller would accept on a monthly basis, and then we can always add a balloon in there as well, just so the seller is paid back in full on a specific date in the future. Does that make sense? So for the seller, they don't have to wait for Trump to get into office. They don't have to, because we also don't know what's happening. Everything is speculation. They'll receive their mortgage will be covered because the buyer will be paying the monthly mortgage, and the buyer would also be paying the seller back a monthly sum until their equity is paid back as well. And then we can add a balloon. So I'm just coming up with numbers, right? Let's say a 15-year balloon. Like the seller would receive a monthly amount from the buyer every single month, and then on year 15, the balance is paid back in full. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get you, but just like I'm saying, it's not up to me. It's the seller's decision. So
Yeah.
the only thing that I can do is I present the offer that you guys sent with the numbers that you more or less see you guys can do and see what they say.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, yeah, definitely. Look, my job is to just explain it to you so it all makes sense. So then when you explain it to the seller, they don't freak out. Because when I first started doing this, I would just send the offer, and all the realtors for the properties that we wanted to buy, they would send me a mean message like, no way. So my job's just to build a relationship with you, make sure that we're both on the same page, help you as much as possible, answer all your questions. So when you're providing the offer to the seller, you can explain it in the best possible light possible. And look, we don't even know if this is going to make sense for the seller. If it doesn't, that's fine. I'm sure there'll be another listing or another property that me and you can work on in the future. But look, use me as a resource as well. I've been doing this for a long time. We've closed on our own properties creatively. We have a lot of experience with doing this. So, y hablo español también. Do you speak Spanish, I assume? Yeah, cool. Entonces, sí, si ya cuando presentas la oferta al vendedor, si quieren hacer una llamada entre todos, también estoy dispuesto a entrar en una llamada con todos y explicar la oferta. Awesome, Ernesto.
What if your buyer defaults on the payment?
It's a good question. It's a good question. So I'm going to send you an FAQ with answers to all of these questions. But regarding that question specifically, we add a clause in the purchase contract and all of the documentation that we send to title that says if the buyer defaults on payment after a certain period of time, let's say 30 days, then the title of the property is transferred back to the seller. Now, like superficially, this may sound like a really bad case, like a worst case scenario, but it's actually good. Because think about it this way. Let's say the seller sells using this method, the buyer takes over, they're making payments for the next 2 years. Well, over the next 2 years, the mortgage is being paid down, the property is appreciating, and the seller is receiving their monthly carryback amount every single month. Now in 2 years' time, if the buyer defaults, in the contract it will specifically say, and everyone's going to agree to this, that the deed will be transferred back to the seller. The seller will take back everything. They'll take back the house, and they don't need to pay back the carryback, and their mortgage is being paid down as well. So in 2 years' time, they just call you, they call Ernesto, and they say, hey man, we want to list it. We now have much more equity, and who knows, in 2 years' time, or whenever this could happen, interest rates are low and they sell it much faster than what it sells now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you send me your info, you send me the offer, and then
Awesome, Ernesto. I'll send it through. I'll send something through preliminary. If you can as well, I'll send you. If you can send me the exact mortgage balance and the monthly payment as well. That's going to help me a lot, because based on the PITI of the mortgage, I can work out how much the buyer is able to pay on a monthly basis towards the carryback as well. Okay.
if I can give you those numbers now, I can give me 1 second.
Yeah. Guys, if you do 10 of these calls, building a really good relationship with the realtor, 1 out of every 10 should actually turn into a signed contract. Now, to make money, you need to have a buyer. Because if you don't have a buyer, you're going to go, like a headless chicken looking for a buyer for your contract. That's why it's very important, to work with someone like us, where we have buyers that are ready to go, and you're just looking for the contract that we can flip to the buyer. Or you are the buyer, right?
No, I'm gonna have to look for
Phone went flat. Let me call him from here.
Hello?
Yeah, Ernesto, sorry about that. My phone went flat, so I'm just calling you from my notebook. I didn't hear the last thing you said.
I was telling you that I'm having hard time. I'm driving right now. I'm looking for my phone. So shoot me an email and I'll send you the info once I get what takes place.
Perfect, man. Yeah, awesome. I'll shoot you an email, FAQ, everything, and we'll figure something out, and let's get you paid, man.
Okay?
Love it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Safe drive. Bye-bye. Alright, guys, so I'm going to close this. Because this call, the first call that you make to the realtor is always just build a relationship, get them on your side, sell them on the concept of creative finance to the point where they're giving you the information, so then you can create the offer and then work with the agent, because you're now on their side. You guys are on the same side, and he wants to sell the deal. He's got a lot of commission in this deal. It's a $750,000 home. So there's a big chunk of commission, and how else, or what am I trying to say? It's the start of the year, so he wants to start the year off with a bang. If he can sell this in 2-3 weeks, it's a big payday for him. It's also a great fucking property for our buyer, and the seller, they get to sell their property as well. They don't have to wait for all this stuff that we don't even know what's going to happen. So love it, guys. I'll keep you guys in the loop.